Hey, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Morning. Morning. I'd like to call the June 8th meeting of the Finance Committee to order. Pursuant to the Illinois Attorney General's guidance to public bodies on the Open Meetings Act during the COVID pandemic, dated July 2nd, the county board members may participate without being physically present in compliance with the established provisions. So it does look like we have a physical quorum. So I will ask, I would ask for the members present. I'll entertain a motion to permit those not physically present due to coronavirus to provide by video or teleconference. Who was the mover? Oh, member DeCiani motion, member Ozek second. Do we need a roll call on this? Yes, roll call, please.
Member DeCiani. Member Eckhoff. Member Garcia. Member Hart. Member Krajewski. Member LaPlante. Member Ozog. Member Renahan. Oh, she's remote, I'm sorry. Member Rutledge. Member Schwarzy.
Aye.
Member Tornatori.
Aye.
Member Zay.
Aye.
Member Chaplin.
Aye.
Member Chavez.
Okay, all ayes, the motion carries. Now we need to do a roll call.
Member Chaplin.
Here.
Member Chavez. Member Covert.
Here.
Member Dessart.
Here.
Member DeCiani. Member Eckhoff. Member Garcia. Member Hart. Member Krajewski. Member LaPlante. Member Ozog. Member Pachalski. Member Renahan. You're on mute. Member Rutledge.
Here.
Member Schwarzy.
Here.
Member Selman. Member Tornatori.
Here.
And Member Zay.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any public comment today? Okay, no public comment. With that, I'll move on to chairman's remarks. Just briefly, the budget survey, we had record turnout from county board members. That was really great. So I appreciate all the participation. This is the last call. So anyone that has any other questions or suggestions for the budget survey, if you can get it to Joan tonight by 5 p.m., we'd like to get the final draft out for your approval and then get that sent out later this month. So with that, I will move on to our presentations. And this morning we have the American Rescue Plan overview.
My name is Mary Catherine. I work in the finance department, and today I'm going to talk to you about the American Rescue Plan Recovery Act, or ARPA, as we're calling it internally. This is an overview. It's an introduction. There are going to be a number of meetings on this to follow, so in the upcoming weeks and months. So this is just a quick educational dip into what's going to be a process over the next summer. So I wanted to say before we started that I personally am very excited and looking forward to working on ARPA. At the staff level, this is the best kind of challenge that we have. We have the resources to do the work, and thanks to the CARES experience, we also have, the experience to do the work well. Because of this historic opportunity at the board level, we also have, in support of you, we have the opportunity as a county to make some lasting improvements, to put people back to work, to help people with their recovery. And unlike the CARES Act, this time around, we have plenty of time to do it. We can proceed really, I think, in a thoughtful way. So this is a great opportunity for us at the staff level, and we're excited to be supporting the board in their efforts going forward. Not too long ago, I was up here talking about the CARES Act with you, and time passed since January, really, we've been talking about the American Recovery Act as CARES 2. To this day, we still tend to see it through the lens of the CARES Act. What's the same? what's different, and what that means for our approach going forward. So with that said, I'm going to start today's presentation with a look back at the CARES Act. And, in so doing, we want to talk about our thoughts for, our strengths, our weaknesses, things that went well, things that didn't go well, and lessons learned for ARPA going forward. The CARES Act awarded the county $161 million. That compares to slightly less than what we're going to get with ARPA. The initial deadline that we had in the CARES Act was only 10 months to spend the money. This time around with ARPA, we have more like 6 years. And with the CARES Act, for many of you were here at that time, you know that we spent the money on immediate problems, on issues like PPE, contact tracing, vaccine rollout, small business relief, staffing, and capital projects, and a big piece too on IT. So one of the big changes that I'll talk about a little bit later here is that some of the ARPA rules for staffing are a little bit more strict. If you work on if you work on COVID projects, you have to be 100% dedicated, working full time on it. So while we were able to pull down a lot of money under the CARES Act for payroll of substantially dedicated and substantially different employees, that's going to change this time around with ARPA. The county board allocated about $49 million to local government under the CARES Act. It was not need-based, but rather it was on a per capita formula. It was a uniform approach, sort of, we took I guess, one size fits all approach, but on the staffing side of things, it was enormously time consuming as we negotiated different contracts, reviewed applications that were incomplete, disorganized, and often ineligible. So that was a challenge last time around. Going forward, we're going to take a different approach, which is a need-based approach. People are going to have to submit their projects on a need basis through our portal. The IGAs, oh, sorry. Next slide. Yeah. So let's go to the next slide. So yeah, we're going to be working with, on the local government side, each IGA is, we did them individually last time around. We're going to take a more standard approach, and we're going to coordinate that with the state's attorney's office and with our staff. Internally, out of the CARES Act came some clear lessons learned for our internal operations. This time around, we want to make some changes, including requiring an individual online portal submissions. We're going to have people submit things and evaluate them on a project by project basis. The applications have to be clear, they have to be complete. The entities that we work with have to have the administrative capacity to fill out the applications and do the work. We're going to make sure that everything meets Treasury guidelines. We're also planning to use a scoring and evaluation system going forward. And we are going to prioritize applications that include local matching dollars. Next slide, please. We also want to make some changes in terms of our process between standard contracts, realistic timing expectations for our payment cycle, developing clear and simple directions. We've been working on directions for the departments. That's one of the things that's gone out. And we've also been working internally as a result of some work with the Kinsey study that the board approved earlier to put together some new reporting that's going to help our OIG reporting and streamline our budgeting process. We're going to change some of the categories that we use, and in compliance with the new act, we're also going to require performance measure reporting so that we can see when we get to the end of the program what we've done with the money. Nick is going to talk a little bit at the end of the presentation about staffing, but I just want to say that one of our strengths coming out of the CARES Act is that we've built a strong team internally. Their knowledge and skills, as well as all the work that we've done with folks inside and outside of the department, like facilities, community service. Those are the pieces that make us well-positioned going forward. Next slide. Okay, ARPA. It's big. It's a big act. $179 million, more than we got in CARES. We got the money at the beginning of May, the first half of it, and we're slated to get the second half contingent upon some of the work that we have to do a year later, next May. It's going to be retroactive back to the beginning of March, which is kind of similar to the CARES Act when that passed, but big difference, 6 years to spend the money. When the CARES Act first passed, we only had 10 months. That was extended, to the end of this year, but 10 months versus 6 years is a very big difference. Last time around, the municipalities got their money through us. We were the only place to get the money. This time around, money is going to go directly to local municipalities for local needs. And there are two primary focuses for ARPA you can see at the bottom of the slide, but the first is really consistent with what the CARES Act was. That was support of the immediate pandemic. Second piece is the big departure. This ARPA new law is designed to lay the groundwork for the recovery. So the purposes are different, and you're really seeing that in the timeline and some of the categories that are allowable. Next slide, please. The slide is, for the board's reference. It shows all the direct allocations to the municipalities. Local governments will be able to request ARPA funding through our portal, but we're going to require that they also request their funding, through the local municipalities to be eligible for county consideration. As I mentioned before, eligibility for payroll under ARPA is much stricter than what we saw before. So that's going to make it definitely harder for some local governments like fire districts, because they're not going to be able to claim, all their payrolls. So that's going to be one of their challenges. Next slide. Other key differences with ARPA include performance measure reporting, revenue replacement being allowable, and again, a more narrow payroll eligibility when it comes to substantially dedicated employees. Next slide. This slide provides an overview. It's divided into 6 parts: public health, revenue replacement, economic impact, essential worker pay, water, sewer, and broadband. I'm just going to go into a little bit of detail with those in the following 6 slides. Next slide. Public health. This is the most general category and the one that's most similar to CARES Act. We'll use this category for much of what we do in terms of, PPE, HVAC improvement, social distancing, like IT projects, and vaccine distribution or contact tracing. There's also an emphasis in the new law on mental health in this category. We did do some mental health programs with the CARES Act, but ARPA makes it clear that this is a priority and that these expenses are eligible. Next slide, please. Revenue replacement, much to all of our chagrin, was not included under CARES Act. That was a huge part of the negotiation at the federal level. It is part of this bill. It's very broad in terms of the uses. So for example, if we say that we've lost $5 million in revenue replacement, and we can take that $5 million and use it for general government purposes. So that's almost anything that we do here. That's very helpful for us. But one of the things we're still working on is to make sure that we're eligible based on our FY20 financials. Along that line, we're working with, we're still waiting for some further federal guidance. Is that okay? The revenue replacement, correct me if I'm answering your question or not, but it's looking at FY19 to FY20, the year before COVID to the COVID year. So did we lose money between those 2 years? If we do, then we're able to take that loss and we can calculate that loss. We don't need to talk about the details of here, but it's relatively complicated. We can take that money, say for example, $5 million, and we have a wide range of things we can spend it on if we qualify. So between 19 and 20. Yes, well, we can use it for expenses starting 3/3 of 21. So if you're asking me, can I use it? Yeah.
Revenue replacement is different than expenses.
Yes, if
Okay.
we have, yes.
Okay, that's all I'm asking. Thank you.
No. Tax increases.
i.e.
If
like our
people-
property taxes. So our property taxes are level. Next year we raise it, but
That's a problem. People that did that are going to have problems, you know, and a lot of people did that, right? Because they didn't have any money. And so in a number of cases, that's going to make folks ineligible. So we're looking closely at our numbers. We did have some one-time money that came in FY20. So we're working with census, you know, the 2006 census requirements and making sure that we comply. And a lot of places have questions on this. So we've been promised additional federal guidance too. Okay, next slide. One of the big parts of this bill is money for workers' families, small businesses, for public sector locations where they laid off staff and impacted industries, travel and tourism, hospitality. These are all things that are specifically called out and eligible for funding going forward. Next slide. Premium pay for essential workers is a new category, although I will say with CARES Act that we did do hazard pay in a few locations. Premium pay is going to be $13 per hour. This can be public sector or private sector employees, and it is going to be retroactive. So people that work directly with COVID patients last year are in a wide range. Any place where you came in close contact with COVID or had COVID risk, you're going to be eligible for this money, retroactive to FY20. Next slide. This also, water and sewer, this is actually categories 5 and 6, water and sewer together and broadband separate. Water and sewer is a major departure for us. And I think one of the big wins in this bill for many local governments and county governments, as these categories and the requirements for what you can spend the money on, it's not limited just to COVID like much of the remainder of the bill. This is broad. You can, you have to follow EPA rules, but in general, that's, I believe, much of what we do. So on the stormwater front, the public works front, there's going to be a lot of great projects that we can potentially do. And broadband is also eligible, but don't think that's going to be the focus of our work here. So if we can go to the next slide. Similar to the CARES Act, we're looking internally at our COVID-related capital projects. Since ARPA's one-time money, it's a good match with capital projects. I know we've talked about that before. Such projects create construction jobs in the community. They have lasting benefits for the county. And so they're really consistent with the purpose and the intent of ARPA. Next slide. What's ineligible, some of these are similar to the CARES Act. You can't use it for your rainy day funds. You can't use it for deposits in pension funds. It's fairly limited on the payroll side. Debt service isn't allowed, and legal settlements and judgments are not allowed. Next slide. in addition to the money that we're getting directly from, there's also money that's in addition to this money that we're talking about today, the $179 million. There's also other resources that are coming to the county. And I'm just gonna give folks a minute or two to read these slides, but I want to call out, the Emergency Rental Assistance Program at the bottom of the slide. We've recently gotten $21.6 million. We've been working with Illinois Housing Finance Authority on $27.4 million. So $10 million for capital fund, the vaccine distribution, Medicaid, public health, behavioral and mental health are all places where we've gotten money. It's continued on the next slide. LIHEAP, emergency leave, paycheck protection, public transit, and disaster relief are all areas that we've gotten substantial resources coming to us. So with that said, I'm gonna ask for the next slide and turn the presentation over to Nick Hotmeyer.
Thank you so much. Oh, yes. Okay, Mary, go ahead. Member Ozog.
Question on the last two slides. What sort of application go through in order to access these other monies? How is that?
I'll go through that.
Okay,
In my
great.
2 slides.
Okay.
So thank you, Catherine. Thank you. All right, so probably about half the board, I think, was involved in the CARES Act allocation. And if you remember, that was our original meeting, I think was a 7-hour meeting, something like that. Great meeting, we accomplished a ton, but that was because the CARES Act was such a short time frame. We have a much longer time frame. We can be more thoughtful, our approach with what's happening. That being said, we've been meeting as a staff for the past, since this came out, to figure out, to put this together. Every Friday, we're meeting for a couple hours to figure out how to do it. And so what our recommendation, and ultimately, I mean, this is your program. If you guys feel like you want to speed it up, slow it down, you have to let us know how you would like it to flow. But ultimately, what our initial thoughts would be to divide this up in at least 5 different meetings, potentially more as we move forward with allocation. And so for those not here, how the allocation works, and we have 2 allocation requests today. So there's not technically a vote on those right when we say, we're asking for a consensus. When we come forward on the county government or reinvest DuPage, it would be a consensus. Yes, this is how we recommend. And then the vehicle that spends that money will come before the committee and the board for final approval, and that'll be the vote. But by giving us consensus that yes, you're in agreement, that allows us then to move forward with the different vehicles to move it. That being said, what we're recommending would be this is kind of our first meeting, I guess, but our first real allocation meeting would come our next finance meeting. And that would be focusing on county government allocation priorities, especially including the health department. So what we would do, once we get through this today, I would send out an email to all elected officials, all department heads, which we've been talking to throughout this. So, I mean, they've already got a lot of it done, saying, get us your requests. And then we would have those in front of you. I envision, obviously, we've already been talking to the health department. They have a big portion of it. I mean, it's going to probably be in the tens of millions of dollars as allocation. Now, hopefully what they like for those, they have a lot of other potential buckets to get money, but we want to make sure we reserve the money. And if they find other money, we can free that up later, but we have to be prepared for what they need. So it's just a matter of basically storing that money away for their use. So you would have the health department. We also envision big changes to the care center for the improvements over there, as well as I know in facilities, there's HVAC projects that are all air quality. That would be the type of projects you see in that first meeting. And we would say, this is what we recommend. This is what everybody's asking for. And then you guys can make a decision whether you agree that's the direction you want to go. And once we get that, then all the departments will move on those projects at later meetings. Number 2, reinvest DuPage. And we actually have Greg Bedeloff here today. If you remember, that was probably one of the most successful programs in the CARES Act that we did with helping our small businesses across DuPage County. That is also going to be the week of June 21st. We kind of envision that being a special call because there's going to be a lot of discussion on that one. And it's a little bit different how all the other ones, we're asking for the allocation. We come back at later meetings, we get the vehicles approved and we move forward. Greg is suggesting, and that's why he's here today, after we're all done, maybe a little bit of direction to Greg, because he would like to, in order to move that program forward for our small businesses, maybe not only the allocation at the meeting, but maybe bring the vehicles for spending the money to that meeting. But that's ultimately up to this board, whether you want to move it that quick. I think it would be Greg's suggestion to open that portal quickly, and he is prepared to open it as quickly as this board wants to. So after these two slides, I'm going to ask Greg to come up here and we can have a 5-minute discussion to give him some direction. And if there's a consensus for the direction, he will get it lined out with the state's attorney and hopefully have everything ready for you in 2 weeks. We are recommending our third meeting being economic recovery, including the other programs for Choose DuPage Convention and Visitors Bureau. If you remember, that's a big component of Arpa program is the Visitors Bureau and economic development. And then finally for Arts DuPage Foundation, that would be July 12th. We're purposely taking a little bit of a break, and the fourth one is going to be Community Services, Mary Keating's group, and nonprofit agencies the week of August 10th. And that was pushed off a little bit because, as Mary Catherine said, there are a lot of other buckets of money in this, a lot of stuff that they are still unpacking, trying to figure out what it is they're going to get, where are their holes in support for our most vulnerable people of DuPage. And so they feel that August 10th, around that time, they will be ready. I will tell you, if they're not ready, they'll be pushed back because they need to understand all those other buckets of money, and there's a lot of them. I mean, they're getting money for LIHEAP, for a lot of rental assistance that they're trying to figure out, okay, what more do we need? And so you'll see it August 10th. And then a final one, which this is the one where I think a lot of the other government agencies will get involved, will be their general requests from other governmental agencies and community organizations. Now we will come forward with, maybe a couple of specific ones in that August 24th, but more importantly, at that meeting, we'll probably unroll the portal that we've created for everybody to submit on. And the purpose of that then, instead of and Mary Catherine mentioned, instead of the, direct allocation, we would like, our suggestion to you would be to consider project-based applications. So what we would do is we'd create the portal. If they're legal projects that meet the requirements of ARPA, we bring it in front of this committee and you guys decide. And once we get through 1 through 4, there's going to be X amount of money left, 30 million, 40 million, whatever it is. And then you guys can weigh the projects that you see, figure out which ones are worthwhile funding, and we can move forward. But they would be project-based, and that would be our recommendation. So like I said, everything's a recommendation, and we're looking for input from this board. If you got anything we're saying you're not agreeing to, we'd like to hear. So before we move on, Sam?
Yeah.
This is, my understanding of ARPA is that this money is a direct allocation to the municipalities. I saw in one of the earlier slides that the townships and fire districts and the like would ask their allocation, whatever that may be, from the municipalities. That's what I saw. Is that correct?
So they don't have to. Our recommendation. So it's a great question. So all.
Well, let me finish the question.
Okay.
If that's the case, and Mary Catherine also talked about IGAs, and if the money from ARPA is going individually to municipalities and then individually to us for the county as opposed to what it was under the CARES Act, what IGAs are we talking about? Because what governmental agencies would not be asking money from their municipalities, or can they ask for a township? Can they make a request to a municipality and us? And if that's the case, who are these other governmental agencies you point out in number 5 if they're asking the municipalities for money, why are they coming to us?
The,
Or will they go to both?
yeah, well, so the only ones who have the allocation would be municipalities and us. There are some holes out there that didn't get direct allocations, as you said, townships, park districts, fire districts, they did not get direct allocations. On the portal, one of the questions will absolutely be, like for a park district, if a park district wants, we want $200,000 in order to build a socially distant room for teaching. One of the things is, did you ask your municipality? And that'll be part of the questions. Now, they can ask both, they can ask one or the other, and that'll be weighed in. There's no requirements that they have to ask one, but obviously as a board and as a staff, we would, if a park district comes in, we'd say, did you ask your municipality? And what was the answer? There are holes out there of other governmental agencies that don't get allocation, and we just want to, there may not very well not be any for municipalities. Maybe they have a project that's so far reaching that they'd like cost share. They'll use part of their money and part of our money. We don't really know, but by opening up the portal, we'll see what comes in. We have had, I know Cheryl has had a number of requests already from different agencies, and that's why we want to do the portal type of approach to have equal, fair playing field. We're gonna, once we get through 1 through 4, we're gonna say there is 60 million left or whatever it is, and whether that's giving it to other governmental agencies or there's another big scale project that this board would like to pursue, that's the question. And I don't know if, by making it project based, then the project, I mean, before we gave money to municipalities and different units of government without it being project specific. Now,
I'm sure you'll figure it out, but I guess what I really liked about ARPA was the fact that we didn't have to go through the machinations that we did under the CARES Act in trying to figure out who was going to get what, because there were going to be direct allocations. But now, if you're telling me a township or another governmental entity can come to us, and then we say that you ask the municipality, and if the municipality knows that if they say no, that agency can come to us and they can use this money for themselves as opposed to a township or otherwise. I hope you guys have a lot of Tylenol, because you're going to have more headaches than you might have had under the CARES Act, because now you not only have to determine the viability of these requests that are coming from these governmental agencies, but then whether or not those requests have been made to the municipalities and were they rejected legitimately, et cetera. So I see some issues.
it's definitely, I mean, the flat allocation we did created a ton of headaches before, obviously making sure they met all the requirements. And if it's the will of the board to have it available for other considerations, other government agencies, the portal approach is how we thought would be the easiest. And then obviously if they come in, we figure there's going to be a scoring approach. If there's matching money out there, they're willing to put up their own money. I mean, our goal would be to take the ARPA money and stretch it as far as we can. If we can take 160 million and stretch it into 300 million of projects, great. That's kind of our goal. And that will help weigh what the, scoring would be. But ultimately those projects will be at the discretion of you as a finance committee of whether they meet the intent of, or, I mean, we'll say, yes, they meet the intent, but are they worthy of additional funding?
Hang on one second. Member Zay and then Member Ozak. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Member
Thank
Zay.
you, Madam Chair. Looks well thought out, Nick. My only concern is 1 and 2. Looks like we're trying to put a lot in that week of the 21st. I mean, you're talking county, all the county-wides, all the county departments and the health department. That's a lot. And then have reinvest DuPage. We do have a 5th week this month where we could move like reinvest DuPage there. I mean, obviously it's new, you guys are well thought out, but there's going to be a lot of discussion on this. I mean, we talk about not having a 7-hour meeting. That week looks like 7-8 hours
Yeah.
of talking.
And that's a
So,
great suggestion, Member
yeah,
Zay. And I think
just-
that's something we could definitely look into.
And
Absolutely.
if that's why we're kind of, your input, if you guys would like to stretch out and go the 4th week and a 5th week for one meeting and the other, you're right. Those first 2 meetings are a lot of discussion. And, obviously the county government side, we can push that off a little bit more. The reinvest DuPage is probably the most time sensitive in talking to to Greg. So that's up to, if we want to do a fifth week, that's
Sure,
perfectly
sure,
fine.
you know, and maybe we put reinvest the first week and then the government allocations the second, the
That's fine.
last week of the month. Yeah, that might be something. Member Ozag and then Member Petruski.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Building on Member Torrentori's question, would we be able, it sounds like we have a great deal of discretion with this entire act in terms of how we fund things. Would we be able to say, I think last time we gave park districts $1 million. Would we be able to do a lump sum distribution to park districts, for instance, and then allocate it among the 30 park districts that we have in the county? And that way give some, make sure they get some kind of money. I've already been talking to one of the park districts in my district. Is that an option?
So
I mean, obviously it'd be best if they get the money from the
So,
municipality. I'm just throwing that out there.
ultimately, it's your guys' decision how you want to do it.
Okay,
Our
so,
recommendation would be no lump sum allocation, make it project based. Because I can tell you that although some of the most fire districts were very, very good at how they did it, but park districts, townships, they struggled. Some of them were spot on with
Right.
doing it. But I can tell you some of like the townships and the park districts, we spent probably 50% of our time just on those.
I'm well aware.
Yeah, on
Thanks.
those, and they're not project based, what are you doing? How are you going to improve it? It makes it so that, we can make sure it meets the ARPA requirements. So our recommendation would be project based, but ultimately it's your decision as a board.
Go ahead, Member Kajewski.
Sure, I got it. Is this microphone? Okay, there we go. Just for the reinvest DuPage, and since Greg is here, our sales tax numbers are running higher now than they were in 19. So, businesses are doing well. But I think there's a lot of businesses could do even better, but they can't even find workers qualified to work there. So the workforce training is important. But also because of this pandemic, I think, Greg, I believe that people have kind of changed their shopping and how they do things. There's a lot of empty brick and mortar. Some of these small businesses aren't going to survive in the future based on how things are going. I mean, go by Ogden and Findlay, there's blue trucks everywhere with Amazon. So they're driving all through the neighborhoods. So as you're looking at this reinvest, I mean, if we're just propping somebody up, like I think we may have done during the pandemic for 6 months before they have to shut their doors, it may not be the best use. I mean, we want to help ones that are going to be viable going into the future. And it's going to be a difficult task. But I just think that clearly people are shopping because we're getting more sales tax than we were getting before COVID. But I just think some of these businesses, if you drive up and down the streets, they got so many empty storefronts, but people are just shopping a different way. So keep that in mind as you develop your program, Greg. But I just don't think we should be putting money at businesses that may just help them keep their doors open another 6 months.
Are there any other questions?
Madam Chair?
Oh, yes, I hear a voice.
I hear a voice from above.
Go
Okay,
ahead.
my microphone. Thank you. Nick, are we going to be using the contracting with the same company that we contracted with for Choose DuPage and the small business loans or grants?
No, you're talking about Guidehouse.
Guidehouse, yes.
You kind of stole a little bit of my thunder. Well, I'll talk about that on slide number 2.
Okay,
So
all right.
it's a great question, and we'll talk about it on the next slide.
And then my follow-up question to that is if we use Guidehouse for the small businesses, again, if we choose to go that route, which I would advocate for helping our small businesses and restaurants and bars, could we also use Guidehouse to vet the requests made by park districts? Because I know I've been talking with my park districts in my district as well, and they really need some money. As I emailed to you, you're surprised by that because I emailed you about the park districts, but maybe we could use Guidehouse to vet their requests as well if we decide to go with individual projects versus giving them a lump sum.
Understood. And so maybe with that, maybe we can go to slide number 2 here. So today we actually have, this is kind of the framework a little bit for working ARPA. So we are asking for allocation authorization for 2 items today. And, to member Desart's question, we are recommending that we do something a little bit different. If you remember on the On the first one through CARES Act, we actually hired Guidehouse, and I think the contract was right around $400,000, if I remember, for 1 year. We're recommending actually bringing in permanent positions that will be funded through ARPA, that will be eliminated at the end of the ARPA term, because we will get 100% of their work time, and it's the same cost per year as we spent on ARPA. So we will have more live bodies, more actual employee time working on this that we can dedicate to it than having a Guidehouse. So we are recommending not using Guidehouse, but using this, and it's eligible, absolutely, and they would be 100% dedicated to ARPA. We're recommending having 2 people in finance, 1 person for Mary Keating's group, and 1 person in facilities management to manage the projects. And like I said, those projects will only be here and available during ARPA once they would be then, so it'd be a term type of employment, but ultimately we will save money over the Guidehouse contract, and we will get far more work. So that would be the first one. And we've had a lot of discussion on this one, especially in finance, what's needed, how they do it. And I think that we are much better positioned to handle it. And at the end of the day, when we use Guidehouse, a lot of the work they did a great job, and they helped us, but we had to make sure everything was perfect anyway from staff standpoint. So we would like to own the whole thing from beginning to end and do that. So that's one request totaling $400,000 for those 4 positions. The other one, and we've talked about it in IT a little bit, is to give IT, Wendy and her team, authorization for laptop purchases up to $300,000. And it's a little bit weird because we can't do it by typical purchasing, because the problem is we can't even find laptops. When she finds 4 or 5 of them available out there, they're gone in an hour because of the chip shortage, the supply chain issues. So it's kind of like an emergency purchase with doing that. But I think this would equal about 200 laptops, Wendy, is that correct? And so basically if you're good with this allocation, she'll bring through a resolution probably at the next one, giving her emergency appropriation authority. She'll work with procurement and be able to purchase these laptops and deploy them for remote work, everything. And it would absolutely qualify. Both of these would qualify for ARPA. So those are the 2 that we're looking for. And like I said, the second one's a little bit weird because it's going to include an emergency purchase, because we can't wait. I mean, if we wait 2 weeks to approve something, laptops are gone, and that's what we're finding.
Member Ozak, then Member Rutledge.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. With these employees, would they be considered full-time county employees with benefits, or would they be contract workers? What exactly?
They would be considered full-time employees,
Okay.
the contract employees. We have many of those across the county.
But these would be 4 full-time positions.
They would be 4 full-time.
And when we're talking about until the end of the term, we're looking at 4 or 5 years.
So
Well,
like facilities management, it would probably end once the HVAC projects are completed, then that position would probably be eliminated. Mary Keating, but they'd vary based upon.
but there wouldn't be a term, there wouldn't
It
be a
would be a
limit.
definitive term,
I'm sorry?
a definitive term for each one of them. That would say, now realistically, probably through attrition in other areas, you'd then move these people, if they're good employees, to fill other roles that were
Fine.
vacated, and these would be eliminated in the long
But
run.
for the initial hire, they would be full-time
They would be.
benefited.
They would
employees.
be.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Member Rutledge.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, if Member Rutledge is speaking, we cannot hear her.
Can somebody hand her a microphone, please?
There it is. Sorry, guys, I forgot since 2 weeks ago. Anyway, so my question is about the laptops. I've been asking you, Nick, for a while now about, the remote workers, and will those people continue to, or be able to continue to be remote workers going forward? So I'm actually happy to see this on our agenda. I think for those who have proven themselves to be effective working remotely, I think that that is a perk that could potentially draw people to want to make the choice to work for our county. And so I just want to make the comment that I am 100% in support of being able to let those who can be remote workers be that going forward, even beyond this. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Member Schwersey?
Thank you, Nick. Is that for the 400,000 for the staff? Is that an annual amount?
That is that's an annual
Okay,
amount, and
okay.
that's a fully loaded amount.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions for Nick? Okay.
I have one.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Nick, thanks for all your work on this. In terms of hiring in staff in-house, do we give up anything in terms of third-party vetting? I mean, I think maybe there's something to having, somebody else judging what we want to do versus judging what we want to do, right? Have we had an attorney weigh in on with that?
So the Guidehouse, when CARES Act, because I was involved in all the meetings with Guidehouse. I mean, ultimately what Guidehouse did in the original CARES Act is they did a lot of the legwork, and ultimately the decision of legal or not legal rested with our team, state's attorney, myself, finance, we had the auditor involved. And so they did the legwork and we still made the decisions. We had the risk on us. So ultimately this is, I mean, if I'm misstating anything, but that was pretty much how it ran before. They did not make any decisions for this county. We ultimately, the decisions, of legal or illegal was made by staff, and then we pushed it up to the board to make the final decision. So we don't think we're giving away anything by not having a third party in here.
Great, thank you.
Thank
Madam
you.
Chair?
Any other, yes, go ahead. Go
Thank
ahead,
you.
Oh, wait,
Thank-
member to start, hold on one
Catherine.
second. Mary
I just
Catherine has
wanted
to,
add
chime in.
that one thing that's going to be much more straightforward this time around with ARPA is that the Treasury Department has issued very clear guidance up front. So when we were working with CARES, there was stuff, the guidance was released in 2 weeks and then 4 weeks. And over the course of it, we had guidance that came out, probably over 10 times over the course of 4 months. So that was an instance where we were really uncertain, I think, about what was happening. And we had to make a lot of decisions about eligibility. But this time around, we feel much more confident about what is in and out of the bill. It's more straightforward, and the upfront guidance that we got with the interim guidance that came out is much more explicit. So that's also weighed into our decision.
thank you, thank you. Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Nick? Okay.
So-
Did you finish your presentation?
Perfect.
Members,
Oh, I'm sorry, member to start. I'm sorry. I see you there now in that little corner.
okay, thank you so much. Nick, so you're saying that Guidehouse is $400,000 annually and hiring these 4 positions will be $400,000 annually. Does that $400,000 include their benefits?
It does. That's a fully loaded expense.
All right, thank you.
And so I guess from today's standpoint is the schedule, obviously what member Zay brought up with maybe having a 5th week, maybe moving the DuPage portion before the reinvest DuPage, which actually, to be honest with you, if it's okay with the board, I would recommend we move reinvest to number 1 and we move the county government to maybe the 5th week, because it'll give departments and elected officials an extra week to get everything lined out. And I know Greg is ready to go. He was ready about 1 day after ARPA came out. So if that works, then we can do that. And I'm looking for concurrence with kind of the schedule and concurrence for the 2 allocation. And we will continue. If you remember on the CARES Act, we kind of had the scorecard where we kept the allocation, the rolling allocation. We will do that as well as we move along. And we will forward that to the board every time that we make, the board makes a decision on an allocation, so you kind of know where we sit. I guess those 2 things first, and then what we can do, we have Greg Bedeloff here. We can either have Greg come up now and discuss it, or we could get through the agenda and then have him come up under new or old business and have that discussion at that point, whatever you'd like, Madam Chairman.
Yeah, Greg, if you want to, Mary, do you have more questions?
Do have a special call on Tuesday, the 29th Would we be able to meet remotely? Is that still a possibility with the governor's order?
It is my understanding that the governor's order extends through June 26th and if he does not extend it,
Okay.
then now keep in mind though, that when you guys do an allocation, it's not a final action. It's more of a discussion and direction. So I don't know if that weighs in, but we can talk to the state's attorney. But we will, whatever we set up, and maybe we're talking 2 meetings, we can push off. We don't necessarily have to do that government allocation the week of June 21st. We could come the beginning of July. So we have some flexibility. I just wanted to see the urgency of the board to move it forward. So we'll work with everybody's schedule to make it work.
Yes, Member Chavez.
Should have reinvest DuPage just from an economic development standpoint. I think a lot of our businesses, we need to get those funds up and running quickly. So I would just like to say that my 2 cents is let's get that running quickly.
Make that-
Madam Chair,
Yes, go ahead, Member.
to that point, I do have one more question. To that point, exactly, for economic recovery and to help our small businesses, the arts and everybody right away, I think there is urgency in getting the money out right away. So back to the guidehouse question. The guidehouse people are ready to hit the ground running. They've been doing this for a year already. But how quickly could we get staff in place? If we hired staff, get them in place, get them, trained, get them on board with how the system works. How quickly could we do that, to Member Chavez's point, to get this money out the door right away to help these people?
I can tell you that probably the biggest issue, I mean, in finance, I think that they have the team in place. When we have the portal on the back end and the back end paperwork, that is not going to be a choke point. I can tell you that probably the most impacted agency here at DuPage County because of ARPA will be Mary Keating's team, because they have so many programs they have to unpack and administer and roll out. That's probably the one that she's still trying to figure out what it all means, because I mean, there are 10 different pots of money and she's getting $1 million here or 2 million there. So there will not be a choke point in finance and in facilities management and Greg Bedeloff. So we can get exactly 1 through 3 out very efficiently once the programs are approved by the board.
Very good. Thank you, Nick.
And then we have one more question from Member Hart, and I think we're going to wrap it up and bring up Greg Bevelot.
Yeah, and less of a question. I think others have covered what I want to discuss, particularly Member Dessart, but I agree with moving Reinvest DuPage first. I think that's an urgent priority for all of us. As we move to the county focused expenses, I would suggest maybe we prioritize the health department at the front of that list.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. That was my comments. Thank you.
Great. And then Nick, did you have more of your presentation?
I mean, are the 2 appropriations consensus, you guys comfortable with that? And we can move forward with that. I know the one's on the agenda for the personnel's on the agenda, and then we will bring a resolution for the emergency purchase probably to give her authorization in 2 weeks.
Thank you. And thanks so much, Nick and Mary Catherine, for your great presentations and all your work. And then Greg, if you want to come up.
I just want to make one point if I could.
Yeah, please.
For the record, during the application process from the initial rounds of Reinvest DuPage, Guidehouse did not play a role in terms of vetting the applications or awarding any grants to the business community. We submitted all of the awards and all of the recommendations to county senior staff, more specifically Mary Catherine, and where Guidehouse got involved from that point moving forward. From an audit trail, we worked with the county auditor and the finance department, but they really didn't have any role in terms of how we administered the Reinvest DuPage program for you all. And the other thing I just wanted to mention as you're considering the Reinvest DuPage program is our initial request, which we submitted to senior staff in terms of a dollar amount, the types of businesses that would be included and excluded, whether or not they received previous relief funds from the federal government, local government, whomever. That is a dynamic component of this program. And as a specific example of that, our initial recommendation when we heard about the ARPA money was to exclude restaurants because there is a restaurant relief fund associated with ARPA and the state of Illinois and other programs. Since we made that request, that fund has already been oversold and is in fact closed. So we would recommend now changing our initial recommendation to include restaurants because they are some of the hardest hit businesses during the pandemic. And the funds that were made available to them, separate of the money that you're all deciding on what to do with, is no longer available to them. So other than that, the biggest thing for Choose DuPage from an administrative perspective is putting the team back together and getting the folks in place so that we can turn that spigot on and get the money out to the business community as soon as possible. Our portal is ready. Our internal staff is ready. It's really just a matter of our review committee and folks that we would kind of review the program. There would be some minor changes that we would recommend in terms of the size of business that would qualify, the actual size of the grant amount. We're making a recommendation to change that to simply help out more businesses in DuPage County.
Great. Thank you. Greg, did you have a question?
Yeah, just one quick question, Greg. Have we made a determination on whether or not businesses that received funding in the last round of Reinvest DuPage would be eligible again? I know there's definitely need even from individuals and businesses that have received before.
One of the key components, thank you, that's a good question. One of the key components of the current program, and we're recommending keeping it as a component of this program, is you have to show proof of revenue decline directly tied to COVID. So our recommendation would be that if you have proof of revenue decline, even with a subsidy, you still have revenue decline, so you are still eligible. If your grant that you got previously from Reinvest DuPage or any other unit of government, any other relief fund shows that you're now in a positive, as Member Krajewski pointed out, now you no longer have revenue decline, then you would be deemed ineligible. That would be our recommendation.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thanks so much, Greg. Appreciate everybody's time. And, in the meantime, think about ideas you have for this, for these funds and get them into Nick and Cheryl. And with that, we will move on to our next presentation from CBRE. Where did my agenda go? Okay.
So before we get started on the presentation, we might actually be able to cut to the chase here a little bit. So if you remember at the last finance meeting, we brought a contract for your consideration, and there were some concerns about the length of the contract, the 11 years length of that contract for WorkNet DuPage. So what we have asked, and so it was, that motion was tabled to today, so it is on today's agenda. What we ask our consultant CBRE to come in here and give a presentation about why why 11 is the best bet, and we have that presentation lined out for you. And we have Jonathan Springer, he's a vice chairman of CBRE, and Dan Persa, he's a first vice president of CBRE, to do that. But I'm not entirely sure that we're going to need that presentation. Lisa is here, and there's some kind of hot off the press news that might have bearing on this. And so I'm going to turn it over to her real quick, and then I have a couple more comments, and we'll figure out where we want to go. So Lisa, if you want to.
Good morning, everybody. So it's news and it's not news, it's uncertainty, and that weighs into this discussion, I think, in a very relevant fashion. Last week, Thursday of last week, I attended the monthly Illinois Workforce Partnership meeting that I attend on a monthly basis. That's an association of my peers throughout the state, all the directors of workforce development. And leadership of DCEO attends those meetings and conveys information to us. And at that time, it was communicated to us that there's a degree of uncertainty at the national level amongst certain factions of Congress about the public workforce system, what that might look like moving forward, if there's some changes that are potentially in the works that could potentially affect everything from funding to how programs are laid out. So of course, this is nothing definite and nothing necessarily imminent, but it, in my mind, changed the equation enough, coupled with hearing the concerns from this committee at the last meeting, to sort of take that potentially altered landscape into consideration. And I think at this point in time, my opinion would be the most prudent decision would be a shorter term lease, just to take all of that into consideration. I think from a purely financial standpoint, the 11-year lease, maybe makes the most sense as far as incentives. But the shorter term lease and the flexibility that would give us seems to make the most sense moving forward.
So, our original direction to CBRE was we wanted the most aggressive pricing, the best economic deal that we could possibly get to save WorkNet DuPage the most money long-term. That's what they gave us, and that's what the the PowerPoint you're about to see shows. I mean, it's very aggressive pricing. That being said, with the new information that Lisa received last week, our staff recommendation would be to redirect our consultant CBRE to go back to the owners and negotiate a shorter term lease, more in line with the comfort level of WorkNet DuPage, and we'll bring that for consideration. If this board would like to see the presentation, we have representatives from CBRE more than willing to give it, but to show how we got to the 11-year and why economically it's a good one. But given where we're at, I think we're probably most likely in the 4, 5, 6 year time frame type of lease that we're probably negotiating. And the economic terms won't be as beneficial, but they're a great company and hopefully they can negotiate as aggressive pricing as we can get. So I just want to know what the will of the committee would be. Would you like to see the presentation or not?
I'm seeing a show of hands that want, we're not doing an 11-year lease, so no, I'm seeing a show of hands, no. Okay, I guess the consensus is that we hold off on the presentation. So thank you so much for coming out this morning, but as a matter of time and getting on with our agenda, I think it would be better to move on with our agenda.
And like I said, the 11-year lease is definitely on the agenda because it was a motion to table that will have to be pulled completely as you get to it. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Thank you all. Thank you all so much for the presentations and everything. So with that, I will move to approve the minutes of the Tuesday, May 25th Finance Committee meeting. We have a motion and a second by Member DeCiani. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Okay. That we move on to budget transfers. I'm going to make a motion to divide the budget transfers, and we will be pulling out the $100,000 for the Fine Arts Committee for separate consideration. So do I have a second on that motion? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Okay, so I'm going to make another motion to approve the body of the budget transfers from 6/8/2021 from various companies and accounting units. Motion and a second on that. Do we have any discussion on any of these budget transfers? Member Renahan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just by way of follow-up on the Criminal Justice Reform Act and some of the conversations we've been having, just want to draw the board's attention to today we have a budget adjustment specifically before us with the new governmental accounting rules, and it does apply to what things that we've done in the past in approving the $632,000. So I just want to say, it's kind of more clear than ever that the $161,215 pulled out for body cams is very much separate from what we approved on the tasers, virtual helmets, which helpful law enforcement tools, but maybe not required under the implementation as we had talked about. So I just wanted to thank our CFO and thank our auditor for bringing attention to that and dividing that out. I think that's very helpful information today and going forward, and how we take out of our reserves and how we take out our contingency fund. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on the budget transfers? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. Now I will move to approve the $100,000 for the fine arts transfer out of contingency. Okay, we have a motion by and a second by Member Zay. Discussion.
Madam Chair?
Okay, I have Member Garcia and then Member Desart. Okay, Member Garcia?
We can't hear Member Garcia.
Your microphone.
So I've been going back and forth on this one. I am 100% in favor of helping Fine Arts Committee, the committee. Member LaPlante is doing great work on this. There was possible use of reserves for this, and I was not for that, and there was a way to find additional money, which I was happy about. I'm still a little bit, and I'm just, looking at even the current requests we're getting from the staff regarding the ARPA funds that are telling me what I'm going to be spending the $400,000 on. I'm still a little bit not sure what this $100,000 exactly is going to be paid for. I know it's going to be for a fine arts festival. And I wanted to clarify again, and I know I'm being probably to some of the members reviewing again my concerns. But when I had a discussion with member LaPlante last night, there is, she said that first we have to get the funds, and just correct me if I'm wrong, member LaPlante. First, we need to get the funds, and then a budget would be done. Is that still correct?
That is correct. I think it's on automatically. Yes, so we have to secure the funds, and then the work starts today at 3 p.m. in committee.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes, member Desart and then member Colbert.
Thank you. I move that we table this budget transfer. I think before we begin considering spending taxpayer dollars on anything, we need to send this back to the Fine Arts Committee so they can develop a business plan, including a schedule, a budget, a marketing plan. I have never seen us approve anything without documentation involved. And the only thing on this agenda item is page 23 that has no information on it. So I move to table this budget transfer and send it back to the Fine Arts Committee so they can come up with a plan.
Do we have so we have a motion and a second on the item to table this item. Can we have a discussion on it?
I had a question.
Oh, member, I'm sorry, go ahead, member Colbert.
Yeah, before that motion, I just wanted to ask member LaPlante if she could provide more detail on the Fine Festival program. And, my understanding of it is that it is coming out from the general fund, but there will be tickets that are sold, I believe, that will reimburse the general fund. And she'll be working in conjunction with other organizations like DuPage, and it would be more of a, an economic thing combined with a fine arts festival. So I just wanted to ask member LaPlante to just kind of shed more detail on how this is going to work, and, with ticket prices and reimbursing the funds out of the from the general fund. So before we move on, just wanted to get clarification.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, member Colbert. So this is a brand new, obviously, since I joined the board. And when I got here on the county board, and we have an annual operating budget of almost $500 million, that's what it'd be, $500 million. I noticed that there was no line item for the fine arts. So the first thing I did was establish an ad hoc fine arts committee. And it's bipartisan, which is fantastic because this is something we can all work together as colleagues and get behind. It's also, we have a wonderful board and advisory panel from the community. So we've got Greg Bedeloff, the president and CEO of DuPage, Orbert Davis, who is from WDCB and the executive director of the Chicago Jazz Philharmonic. Terry Jarris, the president of the Chicago Federation of Musicians. Beth Marchetti, the executive director of DuPage Convention and Visitors Bureau. Jim McGuire, the executive manager of the DuPage County Fairgrounds. Barb Sapaniak, the vice president for programs for DuPage Foundation. And Debbie Venezia, the director of Arts DuPage. So in other words, we're locking arms with these really wonderful community organizations that share my passion and my belief that we want to focus more on the arts in DuPage County. The reason we want to do that, and the reason we formed this committee, is this has been one of the hardest hit industries by the pandemic. Obviously, we all know about something like, take, say, the restaurant industry. At least they were able to do to-go dinners. There is no such thing as a to-go theater production or a to-go concert. So this is a way that we can really show that we support the arts, because we are a fiscal body. So the way we show that we support the arts is by funding the arts. You can't say you support the arts without funding them. We wanted to have as our first initiative, and we talked about this, we've had one meeting so far. So it's amazing how much work that we've gotten done in such a short amount of time. People always talk that government works so slowly. But this is what bold leadership looks like. We get a great idea, we move it forward, and this is what it looks like in the beginning and planning stages. This is how we're doing it. We wanted to have as our first initiative a way to bring the community together after such a, we've survived this pandemic. Well, those of us who have, there's been so much loss, so much grieving. This is a way to celebrate us reaching herd immunity, being able to gather together. We're going to hold it on the county fairgrounds at the end of September. We wanted to have something that was a real visible show of support of the arts by inviting all of the wonderful artists that live and work in DuPage, backed by all those wonderful organizations that I've already read. And to do so, we need an initial outlay of funds. So I talked to Jeff, our CFO, about this. I'm going to ask him if he could speak to the way that we are funding this, because my whole concern was to make sure that there was no risk financially to our county. Thank you, Jeff.
Good morning, everyone. Kind of weird being up here without a mask on. Anyways, to answer your question, staff was asked to find funds to provide this Fine Arts Festival. And we started with a separate appropriation. So in my mind, because we have already current dollars in the budget, I thought as additional appropriation, adding money to the general fund budget was not needed. So I recommended and suggested that we take it out of contingencies. We do budget annually in the general fund money from contingencies. And with the dollar amount that's been requested, I think we can definitely fit that in, provide the funding for this. And basically, that's the budget transfer that you have in front of you this morning.
Any questions for, yeah, go ahead, Member DeCiani.
Budget funds possibly be reimbursable by ARPA? Just curious.
It's a good question. It's a great question. I could tell you that if they are, and we will certainly look into it, we can always reimburse the general fund from those funds. But we'll look into it. It's a good question. Thank you.
Member Rutledge, and then Member Ozag, and then Member Zay.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to give my support to this endeavor for a couple of different reasons. I'm 100% on board with this. As a working artist, I know how hard COVID has been on people who, sing, dance, act. It has just been devastating. And like Member LaPlante has suggested, restaurants were able to limp through this. So the timing of the COVID emergence, I think, is one of the strong positives that we have for this endeavor, because high school groups, show choirs, concerts, band groups have not been able to perform for 14 months. So I think that the enthusiasm that they will have for being able to finally practice what they're learning is huge. Same with actors, all the different groups that'll come forward for this. I think if this were maybe next year when we'd already emerged from COVID, I don't know if the demand would quite be there. The other thing I want to mention is that we're not writing any checks today. We are not going forward with any of these expenditures, but we do need that seed money to go forward with making those budget plans and to figure out who our talent is going to be and to work within that budget. So I would urge everybody that's a little bit on the fence with this to come down on the side of putting together an awesome event that will showcase the talent that we have in DuPage County that has been really pushed down over this last 14 or 15 months. So I fully support this, and I hope that it works well.
Thank you, Member Rutledge. Member Ozag, Member Zay, and then Member Hart.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just wanted to make a couple of comments about the way this is being presented. First of all, we are a board that works with committees, and while I understand this is a new committee, I feel this feels like cart before the horse to me, because even having some broad outline of where even seed money is going is important to me. As you all know, I spent 8 years on the Glenbard board and 2.5 years here. And it seems to me it sets up an unfortunate precedent because we're taking this money from contingency. This leaves about $188,000 left for the entire second half of the year. And my understanding of contingencies is for emergencies or unforeseen circumstances. So that's why I've seconded Member Dessart's motion today. I think it should go back to committee, which I believe is meeting today, and present us with even a broad outline of how this seed money will be spent, and reconsider it in 2 weeks and, carry on from there. That's what I'd like to see done today. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Ozak. Member Zay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In 2 words you're never probably going to hear together again are Member Zay and the Fine Arts. But I want to applaud Member LaPlante for her passion and dedication, hard work to this. She came in, this was a passion of hers. She's brought it forward, had a very nice conversation with her about her plans and ideas. And I have no doubt that she's going to follow through on this. Again, this is a committee structure. They're going to, before they expend anything, it's going to go through the committee. So again, usually I would say no on this, but when a board member has so much passion, so much dedication to bringing fine arts to DuPage County, whether here, just making sure people like myself actually partake in that. But a nice event here on the fairground. We'll have the fair this year. Us coming out of the pandemic, I think it's the right time to do this. And again, we're up on sales tax, we're up on other things, and I have no doubt that Member LaPlante and the committee will spend this money wisely and take her word at getting this money and selling tickets and seeing how it goes. So I'm going to support this.
Thank you, Member Zay. Member Hart.
Thank you, Chair Chaplin. I also want to echo what Member Zay said. I fully support this initiative. I had the opportunity to go to COD this past weekend and see the new Frida Kahlo exhibit that has been a long time coming for our county. And it really emphasized the importance that the arts have in building a sense of community. Frida Kahlo will be big, and I think that this Fine Arts Festival will be a great opportunity for us to celebrate our community. And beyond the community aspect that arts bring, there is a major economic development component. We see that with Frida Kahlo, of course, at a different scale, but there's nothing stopping this Fine Arts Festival from being potentially in the future a sustainable source of revenue. I know every year we have to grow it, but at a minimum, I think there's an opportunity in my conversations with Member LaPlante that this could even. So I would support it. I think it's something that we should look to invest in from different components, and I would be in favor of voting on this today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Member Hart. Member LaPlante, Member Etkoff, Member Tornatore, and Member Chavez.
Thank you so much. Jeff, I'm sorry, I know you just sat down, but I'm going to ask you if you wouldn't mind making sure, I want to make sure that everyone understands that there is no emergency language when it comes to using contingency funds. Can you please speak to that? And also, can you please talk about the level and health and speak to the robustness of our reserves that we have?
Sure. A special appropriation, when we look at our financial policies and our county board rules, does have the word emergency used in it. Now, have we historically used the word emergency to the T to provide additional funding when something comes up? Not necessarily, but we do try to follow that as much as we can. But with a budget transfer and a contingency use and a simple transfer, there is nowhere in our policies or our county code that limits a transfer like this to do another initiative, if you will. So there really is no emergency criteria for a budget transfer, the use of contingency funds to do something like this. So the second part of your question was the health of the general fund. Right now, I know we've had discussions on this at Finance Committee. We have over, right now, probably 54% set aside in the general fund, about 99 million, which is 54% of our operating expenses. And as members noted, sales tax is coming in really well this year. So from a financial perspective, $100,000 will be really no major hit at all to the general fund.
Thank you so much. And then may I also piggyback on what Member Hart was saying in terms of economic development, and he brought up the wonderful example that is Frida. Shout out to the MAC and my hometown of Glen Ellen for this amazing event that they are hosting. In the Daily Herald on June 2nd, Beth Marchetti from the DCVB was quoted as saying they are expecting FRIDA to bring in $8 million in economic development and revenue over a 3-month period. So here it is in black and white in the newspaper, how the arts can lead to economic development. Our hope with starting this Fine Arts Festival is this is the inaugural event. And this is what it looks like when you're creating something out of thin air. It's a process. And we welcome you to join us in this process. I think this can be a beautifully collaborative effort with all my colleagues on the board, and I'm really excited to work together with everyone on this. The other thing that I would like to say about those pulling from the contingency funds is contingency, in my mind, also means when the budget was passed, someone like me wasn't on the board yet. And so there was no ad hoc fine arts committee. There was no idea for a fine arts festival. So sometimes new ideas, new committees, and new initiatives come up in between budgets. And I do believe that that's what these funds are used for. And I'm really appreciative that we have something like this set aside and available to us. And I welcome if any of my colleagues have wonderful ideas or initiatives that they would like to put forth, I'm happy to support your passions as well. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much, Jeff. Member Garcia.
Yeah, quick question, Jeff, as you're sitting down, sorry. I was trying to get it out faster before you sat down. So just so we're clear on this, so we've got $100,000 we're putting it into what fund again?
General fund. It's just a
General
line item
fund
transfer to a accounting unit or department to another accounting unit department.
Okay.
It stays in the general fund.
So we're not going to write until this committee meets and we decide what's going on. We're not going to be writing any checks per what we put Member Rutledge talked about. And you are going to check, I just want to make sure on the ARP funds, because I think that there's a huge amount of money that's going to be specifically for this. And so, you know, really, this is a really maybe a no thing, because it might be just money we're getting from the federal government that goes to support this.
Absolutely.
Okay, just want to make that all clear. Thank you.
Member Chavez.
I'm 100% behind this event as well. I think from an economic development standpoint, we've had this kind of tossed around DuPage over the past few years, and it's never really gotten teeth. And what I'm so impressed by with this committee and under Member LaPlante's leadership is that we have hit the ground running. And I think there is a sense of urgency, so I don't think there's any need to table this. I have full confidence in this committee that they are going to look at this budget, they're going to look at how this event comes together. And obviously we've got elected members, we've got people from our communities and the arts community that are going to have oversight of this. So I'm 110% behind it.
Great, thank you, Member Chavez.
Madam Chairwoman, sorry, I'm on screen.
Okay, Member Tornatori, then Member Colbert, then Member Eckhoff. Sorry, it's going to be Member Tornatori, Member Eckhoff, Member Colbert, Member Schwarze. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. While I appreciate Member Ozog and Member Sart's motion to table, I'd be voting against it. I think this is an absolutely necessary event to take place. I think from the dollar standpoint, it's a transfer of funds into the general funds. Nobody's writing a check. We don't have to spend the money if this falls on its face next week or next month. There is a plan in place, as I understand it, from talking to Member LaPlante, that tickets are going to be sold, and hopefully that may be 100% reimbursable, and maybe we'll even make money on this deal. I think it's kind of a chicken and egg situation with the committee. They can't plan anything if they don't know that they have any money to make the plans. So you've got to have that basis in order to know how big this can be, how much you can spend on various kinds of things. So it's a relatively small hit given our budget and what's necessary. Almost every town is trying to put their festivals back together again this summer. Taste of this town, taste of that town. Why not something from the county? I do think this is needed. We've gone through a really tough road. We talk about brick and mortar stuff every day. you know, how many roads we're gonna fix, how much we're gonna do here, how many laptops we're gonna buy. Maybe $100,000 to try to have a little fun for a weekend in the fall is not the worst thing in the world. So I totally support this and applaud Member LaPlante's passion and willingness to move forward.
Discriminatory Member Eckhoff.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I very briefly would agree with the speakers who have talked about supporting this. I thought it was a unique opportunity to pull the four corners of the county together after the pandemic and get a lot of people out and doing things that artists and performers from high schools, colleges in our county. I'm also hoping that we're somehow able to showcase the DuPage County Historical Museum to make that more of a destination spot for DuPage County residents. I also support this because it's my understanding that there's a very good chance that it's going to be revenue neutral and going forward, it'll be able to support itself. One item that I don't think I mentioned to Member LaPlante before, but I think is important, if you've got a lot of different performers working on this, the Whedon Park District built a beautiful new band shell in downtown Whedon, which I'm sure we might be able to talk to them if you've got excess performers, and they would be a great another location for your committee.
Thank you so much, Member Eckhoff. Did Member Schwarzy?
I was next.
I'm sorry, Member Colbert, go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you. No, I wanted to thank Member LaPlante for, all her hard work and effort into this entire thing, because I know it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of planning. You answered my questions for me, and I'm excited to hear, I like what you said, that we've seen arts programs bring in revenue before, and this Fine Arts Festival has this great potential to bring in revenue for our county, which we really need, in stimulating economic recovery. We have supported fine arts before, and I've supported it before. I support it now. And I think Member LaPlante would be the best person to do this job, because we only have one person on our county board that I would say is an expert in the arts, sector, with her, talented skills as a musician. I think that she brings a lot to the table, and I think it's really going to help us in the long run, but we do need this investment right now to see the fruits of it later. So just wanted to thank you, Member LaPlante, for answering my questions. I wholeheartedly support your initiative. I think it's going to be great, and hopefully we could, create revenue out of this and stimulate our economic recovery. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. When Member LaPlante approached me with this idea a few months ago, I said, sure, I'll support that. But I always reserve the right to change my mind based on good, solid discussion at this level. And as an elected official, one of the things I really appreciate is respectful discussion, whether it's differencing of opinions or not. I appreciate everybody's comments that I've heard here today. And based on what I've heard, I haven't changed my mind.
Madam Chair?
Thank you so much, Member Schwarzy. Yes, Member Dessert.
Thank you. And we all have to answer to our constituents. I get that. But with no description, details, or just even a basic business plan to show the board, it's asking these stewards of taxpayer dollars to buy an empty box, sight unseen, for $100,000. It's not our money. It's our taxpayers' money. I support the chairwoman's enthusiasm. I love the idea of a fine arts festival. But per the resolution, I don't think this expenditure is deemed necessary. That's the language in the resolution. I told the chairwoman that I am in full support of the idea, but not in support of spending taxpayer money, not a dime of taxpayer money. I suggested to the chairwoman that we find grants or corporate sponsorship, patrons from the arts community. And why the rush? Why hold the festival in 3 months? I suggested to the chairwoman that if 3 months isn't enough to get those grants or corporate sponsorships, we could hold this festival in the spring or the fall of 2022. I know the professional groups are coming back in the fall of 2021, so I'm not sure how we're going to compete with them. And I know the DuPage arts, museums, dance troupes, theaters were devastated by the pandemic, but DuPage County just received $89 million in American Rescue Plan money from the National Treasury. And I love DuPage County museums and the arts, our music, our theater, our visual arts organizations. And during our discussions on how to allocate that ARPA money, I will be a vocal advocate to spend millions to restore those entities where they can get the help now, not in 3 or 6 months, but we can give millions to the arts now. So, you know, at first the money was to be taken out of reserves. That's like our 401k. You don't take money out of your 401k for a festival. Now it's being requested to be taken out of our contingency. That's like our savings account for emergencies. Like if we have a huge snowstorm and we need more salt or plow drivers. And that started at $400,000. If this money comes out of it, we'll be down to 180. We still have 6 months of the year left. So I support the creative idea of the chairwoman. I'm 100% in favor of a fine arts festival. As always, though, I'm going to vote on behalf of my constituents, and I am 100% against using taxpayer money to pay for the festival. I look forward to working with the chairwoman to look into grants or look into corporate sponsorships, but I'm just against using taxpayer money for this, except for the ARPA funds, which we can get them, the arts community, millions within a month. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or discussion from any of the board members? Member Rutledge. Okay, Member Rutledge and now have comments. Member
Thank
Rutledge.
you, Chairwoman. I just want to say that we're looking for seed money for this. Our committee, if we're approved, will start that work this afternoon to fine tune the event, figure out the budget, figure out what, you know, where those funds are going to go, which will yet again come back to this board. So you still have oversight. We're just looking for a yes vote here so that we can go ahead with the planning of this. And we can't really do that without knowing what our seed money is. So again, I'm supporting this 110%, and I hope the rest of my colleagues will.
Member Garcia, and then that we're calling the question after that, and then I'll do closing comments. Go ahead.
Yeah, just in response to that, you know, I have had so many discussions in regard to this, and I've gone one way, I've gone the other way, and everything, and hearing all the discussion today, and hearing all of the, you know, and I think what's made me feel good is that this will be an account. We're not going to touch it. It's basically just there on the side, and maybe we'll even get it put back. That makes me feel better. So I will be. I'm 100% behind Member LaPlante's idea, about 80% for without a budget. So I will be voting yes today.
Thank you. So Mike, thank you. Everybody done with your questions and comments? Okay, thanks so much. So yeah, we're calling questions. I just want to do my closing comments. I haven't had to make any on this yet. So as the finance chair, I take my responsibility very, very seriously. And you know, as you know, once you open the faucet for special items that aren't necessary, you know, how do you turn that faucet off? And that's many times how financial organizations get into trouble, specifically the DuPage Water Commission, which I was a member of. And I was very, you know, took that seriously. And, you know, the spending got out of control and they ended up with no money. So I think we have to be very cautious when we do things like this. I very much in support of a fine arts festival. However, all the fine arts festivals that I have gone to or that I see are sponsored by sponsorships and grants, not with tax dollars. And as stewards of the tax dollars, I think we have to be very, very, very careful with how we spend them. I'm concerned that we're giving money for a budget. The normal budget process is you plan how much you're going to need and then you ask for that money. We don't collect taxes and then set a budget. We set our budget and then we collect taxes, and that's the normal way. That's how budgeting goes, and that's how most financings are done. You don't plan your budget. You don't plan an event around a budget. You plan your budget around the cost of those events. So this is, to me, it's kind of backwards. And it's also my understanding that even if we give this $100,000 out, there still needs to be an intergovernmental agreement with the Fair Association. And we don't have that agreement done. So no money can be dispersed until that intergovernmental agreement is done, correct? Okay, so that's another issue. We also, I'm hearing this event being compared to Frida Kahlo, but then I'm hearing that it's going to be high school groups. So, you know, and that we're taking this money out with the risk of having it either paid back by ticket sales or by American Rescue money. Now, I would feel much more confident if we had a guarantee that we could use American Rescue money before we allocate these funds, and maybe in a couple of weeks we'll have that answer. And that's why I'm really looking to table this. I would love to table this, send it back, have the Fine Arts Committee come up with plan and objectives, a budget, and then have the resolution, the intergovernmental agreement with the fairgrounds all in place with the $100,000. I would feel much more comfortable, and that would be my recommendation. So that is why I'm in favor of tabling this. So with that, I will call the vote. Let's have a roll call, please. That's the motion to table, yes.
Roll call on the motion
Yes,
to
please,
table.
yes.
Member Desart,
Aye.
Member DeCiani. Member Eckhoff,
No.
Member Garcia,
No.
Member Hart. Member Krajewski,
He's not here.
Member LaPlante,
No.
Member Ozog,
Yes.
Member Pachowski, Member Renahan,
Aye.
Member Rutledge,
No.
Member Schwarzy,
No.
Member Selman, Member Tornatori,
No.
Member Zay,
No.
Member Chaplin,
Yes.
Member Chavez,
No.
Member Colbert.
No.
Okay, so the motion to table fails, and now we move on to the main motion to allocate the $100,000 budget transfer to the Fine Arts Organization.
Chair?
Yes, discussion, please.
Yeah, discussion. I just have one comment about that. Many of you know that I've been working with the League of Movement Voters and a number of organizations about on the Heritage Gallery and revamping the Heritage Gallery and redoing that. And I just want to say that if I were offered $100,000 in contingency money to redo the Heritage Gallery that I've been working on for a year and a half, I would vote no against myself because I just don't think that tax dollars should be used for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Desart. Thank you so. Member Tornatori.
Thank you. And again, I appreciate Member Desart and everything you're saying. We use everything we do is tax dollars. So let's not, quote unquote, use tax dollars as if we're reaching into somebody's pocket. Everything we do comes from tax dollars. And regarding sponsorships, I don't think I'm not a member of that committee, but I'm presuming that sponsorships are not off the table on this as part of the revenue stream. So there's a lot here to be discussed. And again, I'm just going to go back. How can you plan something without knowing how much you have to spend? It's impossible. So we've got to give some parameters to this committee if we're going to support it, to say this is your quote unquote budget. No money's going to be spent yet. It's going to have to come to, I presume, finance and ultimately the county board, but we've got to give them a roadmap in order to get this thing underway. So again, I appreciate everything that's been said regarding the money here, but I fully support the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Tornatori. Hang on, Member Ozog, and then we'll go on, Member. Go ahead, Member Ozog.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. With all due respect, I do think that there's at least some items on this that could have been enumerated, and it should have gone. I do think it should go through the committee first, and a meeting could have been held in the last few weeks, et cetera. But I do think it's setting up a bad precedent, and there are items that would be common knowledge, porta potties, security, those sorts of things. At least have some rough estimate, because I just cannot get behind something that is literally one line item transfer $100,000. A budget comes before the expenditure or some kind of enumeration. That's how I feel, what my experience is. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Member Ozog. Okay, we're going to call the question and we will take a roll call on the main motion.
Member Chaplin,
No.
Member Chavez,
Aye.
Member Covert,
Aye.
Member Desart,
Nay.
Member DeCiani, Member Eckhoff,
Aye.
Member Garcia,
Aye.
Member Hart,
Aye.
Member Krajewski. I'm sorry? Member Krajewski? Member LaPlante,
Aye.
Member Ozog? Member Pachowski? Member Renahan?
No.
Member Rutledge?
Aye.
Member Schwarzy?
Aye.
Member Selman? Member Tornatori?
Aye.
Member Zay?
Aye.
And Member Krajewski?
Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. And we move on to consent. Who was that motion by? Member Zay made the motion, Member DeCiani second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. The motion carries. We move on to procurements. Member Krajewski, Finance. Oh, he just left. Member Zay, would you take that, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Move on 2021-55 recommendation of a contract approval to Clear Law Institute LLC, state mandated COVID safety workplace training, amount of $27,405.
Okay, motion and a second. Discussion on this item? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you, Member Zay. Economic Development, Member Chavez.
Hi, thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Given the talk that we had this morning, I feel like the board was in agreement that we should pull this item to allow CRBE to go forward with the new proposal.
Great, thank you so much. The item is pulled. Is that with leave of the body, the item can be removed? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you so much, Member Chavez. We move on to Judicial Public Safety, Member Renahan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move approval of JPSP 28121 contract purchase order with Life Technologies Corporation, rapid HIT ID system for the crime lab of the Sheriff's Office, not to exceed $152,986.95.
Second.
We have a motion by Member Renahan, a second by Member
Garcia.
Great, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you, Member Renahan. We move on to Public Transit, Member Ozak.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move for approval of PTR 029421, resolution intergovernmental agreement between the Regional Transportation Authority and the County of DuPage for the DuPage County Multimodal Mobility Plan, county cost $18,975.
Great, thank you. We have a motion by Member Ozak.
Second.
Second by Member Garcia. All those, any discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you so much, Member Ozak. Now we move on to Public Works, Member Ozak.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move for approval of PWP 028221, recommendation for the approval of a contract to ComEd to provide electric delivery services for the operation of all public works facilities for the period June 8th, 2021 through June 7th, 2024, for a total contract amount not to exceed $1,168,000.
Second.
Competitive bid, not suitable for competitive bids, public utility.
Thank you. We have a motion, a second by
Me, second.
Member Garcia. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Member Ozak.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move for approval of PWR 0321 resolution, a land sale contract, $430,000, 454 Frontage Road, Clarendon Hills.
Second.
We have a motion by Member Ozak, a second by Member Garcia. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. We move on to redistricting and Member Zay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move on RDCP 29121, recommendation approval of contract issued to Grappa LLC Consulting for one-time fee amount of $30,000 to consult on matters concerning the 2021 county redistricting process.
Second.
We have a motion by Member Zay, a second by Member Chavez. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. We move on to stormwater. Members A.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to combine items 1, 2, and 3.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to combine items 1, 2, and 3 under stormwater. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Please continue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move on SMP 29021, approval of contract issued to Scarce Youth-Based Water Quality Education Service, an amount of $77,000. SMP 28821, agreement between DuPage County and Engineering Resource Associates, professional engineering services for St. Joseph's Creek, the amount of $119,480. And SMP 28921, approval of a contract issued to B3 companies for on-call professional engineering services, amount not to exceed $95,000.
Okay, so we have, those items are combined. Roll call or any discussion? Roll call? Voice vote. Oh, voice vote. Okay, voice vote. Oh, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, members A. We move on to technology, and I'm going to ask Member Hart, but Member Hart is not here. Member DeCiani? Oh, your microphone.
Thank you. Making a motion to approve item TEP 0292-21, a recommendation of the contract to AT&T Mobility in the amount of $34,860.
We have a motion by Member DeCiani, a second by Member Chavez. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Moving on to transportation, we, and Member Pachowski's absence, Member Ozak.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move to combine and approve items 1 and 4, which are both contracts for signed materials.
Okay, we have a motion to combine items 1 through 4 under transportation.
1 and 4.
Oh,
One and
Oh, I'm
4.
sorry, 1 and 4 on transportation. We have a second on that?
Second, Schwarzy.
Second by Member Schwarzy. Items 1 and 4 are combined. Please continue or vote on that, please. Motion to combine items 1 and 4. Do we have all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the items are combined. Please
Okay, and
continue.
now a motion to approve items 1 and 4.
Second on that? We have a motion by Member Ozak, second by Member Tornatori.
Okay.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
I think I need to read. the
Oh,
others.
yes, read those, please.
Okay.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Item 1,
We're at the time crunch.
combine and approve DTP 028721, recommendation for approval of a contract to Vulcan for signed material for the Division of Transportation, June 24th, 2021 through June 23rd, 2022, for total contract not to exceed $65,000 per lowest responsible bid. And item number 4, DTP 028421, recommendation for the approval of a contract to 3M Company, furnish and deliver signed materials, Division of Transportation, period June 24th, 2021 through June 23rd, 2022. Total contract amount not to exceed $50,000 per low bid. First of 3 options to renew.
Okay. Okay, second by Member Zay. Any discussion on these items? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Member Ozak, please proceed.
Okay, I'd now like to move for approval of items 2 and 3, which are professional engineering service
We're
contracts.
combining 2 and 3.
Combining 2 and 3.
Okay. Motion to combine 2 and 3. Is there
Second, Schwarzy.
motion in a second, but second by Schwarzy. Any discussion on combining these 2? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Okay,
motion
I now
carries.
move to approve items 2 and 3, professional engineering service contracts.
Second, Schwarzy.
Okay, we have a motion in a second to approve these items. All the, any discussion? All those in favor? Oh,
Aye.
To
She has to
them
read them.
first, I think.
what was that?
She has to read them.
Oh, go ahead, reread them. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I thought when you read them once, you didn't have to reread them.
item 2, DP. Do I-
You don't have to. If you read them once, you don't have to read them
I
again.
didn't read these.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Go
Item
ahead.
2, DTP 028621, agreement between the County of DuPage and FGM Architects, Professional Architectural and Engineering Services, Division of Transportation Facilities, for a total contract amount not to exceed $1,156,637. Professional services vetted through qualifications based on selection process in compliance with Illinois Local Government Professional Services Selection Act. And item 2, DTP 028521 agreement between the County of DuPage, Illinois and A. Epstein and Sons International Professional Engineering Services to establish a DuPage County Trails Plan for Division of Transportation, total contract amount not to exceed $299,646.34. County to be reimbursed 80% or $239,770.07. And this was done in compliance with the Illinois Local Government Professional Services Selection.
Okay, and we have a question for member. Do you have a question? Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. So I've had a couple of bike trail advocates that have contacted me all through the last couple of years. So my question is this part of the Route 53 extension, or will the Route 53 bike path get folded into this and the Stearns Road, Bartlett out to Munger Road, or whatever that stretch is?
I think Director Snyder is probably online.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes. So thank you for the question, Member Rutledge. So this trails plan focuses exclusively on our 3 regional trails, that being the Illinois Prairie Path, Great Western Trail, and the Southern DuPage Trail. So it does not incorporate any new trails or any other locations of bike segments. It's specifically for those 3 trail segments.
Thank you. Is that all? You're all set, Member Rutledge? Okay, thank you. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Member.
Okay, I move for approval of item DTP 028321, recommendation for the approval of a contract to AT&T Corporation to provide telecommunication services as needed for the Division of Transportation owned traffic signals for the period August 1st, 2021 through July 31st, 2022 for a contract a total not to exceed $45,000 per renewal option under RFP 17002LG, third and final option to renew.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. The motion carries. Thank you so much, Member Ozad.
Thank you, Madam.
Finance resolutions, Member Kudrowski. Do we need your microphone, Member Kudrowski?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Member Kudrowski, a second by Member Garcia. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you, Member Kudrowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move on FIR 0303-21, a resolution with a revision to the personnel budget. Overnight.
We have a second by Member Tornatori, was that? No, we can't do that in finance. Okay, motion and, what was that? What did we give?
He didn't say anything,
Oh, I
but
thought you did.
he did now. He
Oh,
seconded
Member
it.
Zay. All right, we have a motion by Member Kudrowski, a second by Member Zay. Any discussion on this item? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. Informational, Member Kudrowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to place on file or receive and place on file informational items: A, County Board; B, payment of claims; C, wire transfers; and D, grant proposal notifications.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on informational items. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Do we have any executive session? Okay. Great, thank you. Any old business? Member Eckhoff and then Member Schwartz-Horsey. Member Eckhoff.
Just briefly, we've got the survey that's going out, and I noticed in question 3, we asked how much people value certain things that the county does, and I would like a question asked about how much the residents value the personal safety and safety of their property, something along the lines of judicial public safety, since judicial public safety is probably the biggest budget item that we have between all our departments.
Thank you so much. And we did add one question in public safety that And so we'll include that one as well. Thank you, Member Arpa. Member Schwarzy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With regards to the budget survey, how is that distributed to the county population?
That goes out, well, Joan can talk, but email. No, it goes out through an email blast to all of our, to the county's email list. And then we promote it on Facebook and Instagram and social media. And if you want to continue, Joan.
We use every tool at our disposal, Member Schwarzy. We put out a press release. Member Chaplin will undoubtedly do some media interviews on it. It goes to the more than 65,000 people who receive our e-blast. It is promoted heavily on social media, and historically, we've had very nice return, which continues to grow each year.
Thank you very much. My concern is the senior population. There's obviously questions on there that are certainly important to our senior population, and though I think their IT use is probably greater than it's ever been, there's still a big chunk of people that get lost in that. And so is
If I
there a
could
way to
address
combat
that, I'd be happy to allay your fear. In years past, the over 55 population has been one of the most enthusiastic respondent groups of this. And I think they are reached
Wait a
primarily.
minute, I'm 55, so I guess
As
I follow
are
that.
many of us. However, I would say that our approach is through Facebook, particularly the e-blast. They are a big group of our e-blast receivers, and traditional media reaches them. And when we do media articles, the address where you can respond is in there generally. So I hear what you're saying, and we'll keep an eye on that, but I appreciate your interest.
Thank you
Thanks.
very much. And I will just, with that being said, I'll reserve the right when we get the results of that. If there are some senior issues that seem low on the list, I may bring this up again. So thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for your comments, Member Schwarzy. So thank you all for attending today. Thank you for the respectful dialogue. It was a good meeting. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.